My name is Jessica Parker. I am 27 years old, unmarried, and for a long time now, I have been carrying a heavy weight in my heart that I have not known how to put down. I want to share my story honestly, because maybe saying it out loud will help me understand it better myself. Before any of this happened, I always thought of myself as a practical, level-headed person. I worked hard in school, earned a good job at a marketing company, and focused most of my energy on building a stable career. I rarely daydreamed about romance the way some of my friends did. I believed that if I simply worked hard and made sensible choices, everything else in life, including my personal relationships, would eventually fall into place naturally. About a year ago, my family arranged a proposal for me with a man named Brian, who worked as a police officer in our city. In my family, and in many families like mine, parents often help introduce their children to potential partners. It is simply how things are done, a way of finding someone with similar values and a stable future. At first, I was hopeful. Brian seemed like a steady, responsible man, and my parents seemed happy with the match. As our families started meeting more often, though, I slowly began to notice something. Our two families did not think in the same way. My family has always been simple and generous. We give from the heart, without expecting much in return. But from Brian's side, I never felt the respect or the value that I believed I deserved. I tried my best in every conversation, every meeting, every small gesture, but something always felt slightly off, like a puzzle piece that almost fit, but not quite. During this same period of my life, I started talking more with a colleague of mine from work. His name was Ryan. He worked in the sales department, just down the hall from my own desk. At first, our conversations were simple and casual, just friendly chats during lunch breaks or quick messages about work projects. He had an easy laugh and a way of making ordinary conversations feel light and enjoyable, which made him easy to talk to during long, stressful workdays. I made sure to tell him early on that I was already engaged and that our paths in life were different. He told me in turn that he was also engaged in an arrangement set up by his family to his cousin. Knowing this, I assumed we were simply two people supporting each other as friends, both already committed elsewhere. Despite knowing all of this clearly, we stayed in contact. I often told myself, and even told him directly, that continuing to talk so much felt wrong somehow. Every time I tried to create some distance, though, he found new reasons for me to stay, gently convincing me not to pull away. He was a good talker, someone who always seemed to know exactly the right words to keep a conversation going. We never actually met in person. Everything between us happened only through phone calls and text messages. But in just 15 or 20 days of talking constantly, things became surprisingly intense. He told me he had fallen deeply in love with me. At first, I did not feel the same way. I was cautious, aware of my own engagement, aware of his. But slowly, day by day, call by call, I found myself becoming emotionally attached to him too. Before I fully realized what was happening, I had fallen for him as well. Looking back, I remember exactly how it happened. It was never one single dramatic moment. Instead, it was small things building up quietly over time. The sound of his voice growing familiar and comforting. The way he remembered small details I had mentioned only once. The late-night conversations that stretched on far longer than either of us probably intended. Each small moment, on its own, seemed harmless, but together, they slowly built something powerful inside me. Something I had not expected to feel at all. Then, quite suddenly, he changed his tone. He said we should just stay friends, because this relationship, whatever it was, had no real future. Logically, I understood and agreed with him completely. Two engaged people, building something emotional on the side, clearly had nowhere healthy to go, but emotionally, agreeing with him was far harder than saying the words out loud. I told him honestly that I now saw him as someone I wanted as a life partner, not simply a friend, so returning to plain friendship no longer felt possible for me. Still, he kept gently convincing me to stay in contact, saying we could remain close, as friends. He said he never wanted to lose me completely from his life. Looking back now, I believe that was its own quiet form of manipulation, though I did not see it so clearly back then. He would send mixed signals constantly, pulling me closer whenever I tried to step back, and then turning cold and distant whenever I actually needed real clarity from him. As time passed, his behavior changed even more. When he eventually went back to his hometown to spend time with his family, he reduced our communication significantly. Where we once talked every single day, sometimes for hours, our conversations became short, rare, and distant. I kept reaching out, asking gently for some clarity about where we stood, about what any of this had really meant, but he consistently avoided giving me a straight answer. If you are enjoying this story so far, please like this video and subscribe for more emotional English stories. Now, let's continue. Eventually, he told me plainly that he was moving forward with his wedding to his fiancée, and that he planned to cut off all contact with me completely once that happened. I remember reading that message over and over, feeling something inside my chest tighten painfully with each read. I told him clearly, with as much honesty as I could gather, that if he had already been engaged for so long before we even started talking, he should have been upfront and simply avoided building this closeness with me from the very beginning. His response was short and dismissive. He said, "It was a mistake. I'm not perfect. I'm not an angel." That was it. No real apology, no deeper explanation, just a few quick words meant to close the conversation entirely. I actually begged him at one point to simply block my number completely so that I could finally begin moving forward with my own life. I knew myself well enough to understand that if the connection between us stayed even slightly open, I would eventually give in to my own emotions, text him again, and then feel deeply embarrassed afterward when he chose to ignore me, which he had already done many times before. He had a clear pattern of talking to me only whenever it suited him, yet somehow never fully closing the door between us either. The hardest part, though, was admitting to myself that I was unable to block him on my own. I knew myself too well. I knew that even if I blocked him one day, I would likely unblock him again soon after, simply to check if he had messaged, to see if he was online, to search quietly for some sign that he still thought about me. And each time I did that, the overthinking would begin all over again, pulling me right back into the same painful cycle. I remember one particular night very clearly. I had blocked his number after a especially painful conversation, feeling proud of myself for finally taking control. But by the next morning, doubt crept in quietly. I told myself maybe I had overreacted, maybe I owed him one more conversation to fully understand his side. I unblocked him within hours, and within minutes, my phone buzzed with a message from him, as if he somehow always knew the exact moment my resolve would weaken. That pattern repeated itself more times than I care to admit. Then, almost overnight, he became cold and distant, exactly as he had warned me he would. Meanwhile, I was left completely alone with my thoughts, overthinking every single message, every phone call, every quiet promise he had once made to me. Around that same difficult time, my own engagement with Brian, the police officer, also came to an end. Our families decided, mutually, that we were simply not a good match after all. When that happened, I felt an unexpected wave of regret wash over me. I found myself thinking that maybe I should have simply continued forward with that engagement, focusing on building a stable, practical future rather than allowing my heart to wander towards something so uncertain and painful. It felt, in that moment, like I had lost on both sides of my life at once. What hurt me most, when I truly sat down and thought about everything honestly, was this simple, painful pattern. When Ryan wanted closeness, he pursued it eagerly. When he wanted distance, he created it just as easily. When he wanted friendship, I quietly went along with whatever he needed from me at the time. And in the end, everything between us simply ended, almost as suddenly and casually as it had begun. Some nights, lying awake in my bed, I would ask myself difficult questions I could not fully answer. Was Ryan truly the main reason for all of this pain? Or was it simply an unfortunate situation neither of us fully controlled? If he was genuinely happy and settled with his own engagement, why had he entered my life at all, creating this deep emotional attachment between us? Why had he kept me so emotionally connected to him without ever truly choosing me as anything more than a distraction? And now, how was I supposed to process the regret of losing a stable, practical engagement, one that might have given me the steady life I once thought I wanted? I had always considered myself a strong, focused woman. I was career-oriented, practical, someone who never believed deeply in dramatic emotional stories like this. Yet here I was, feeling broken, confused, and emotionally exhausted, wondering how someone so grounded could end up in a situation so messy and painful. For weeks after everything ended, I struggled through each day quietly. At work, I tried to focus on my tasks, but my mind would often drift back to old messages, replaying conversations I already knew by heart. I avoided checking my phone as much as possible, though some nights, curiosity would win, and I would find myself scrolling back through old chats, searching for some clue I might have missed the first time. Eventually, one evening, I called my older sister, Michelle, who lived 2 states away. I had always looked up to her calm, steady way of handling difficult situations. I told her everything, from the beginning of my engagement with Brian, to the confusing months with Ryan, to the painful ending of both situations at nearly the same time. She listened quietly, without judging me, letting me speak until I had nothing left to say. I remember my voice shaking as I explained everything, worried that she might think less of me for allowing myself to become so emotionally entangled with someone who was already engaged. But instead of criticizing me, Michelle simply asked gentle, thoughtful questions, helping me untangle my own confused feelings piece by piece. Talking to her felt like slowly setting down a heavy bag I had been carrying alone for months. When I finally finished, Michelle said something that stayed with me for a long time afterward. "Jessica," she said gently, "you are allowed to feel confused right now. You are allowed to grieve 2 different kinds of loss at once. But please, don't let this experience convince you that you are weak, or foolish, or broken. You trusted someone honestly, and that person handled that trust poorly. That says something about him, not about your worth." Her words did not fix everything instantly, but they gave me something small and important to hold on to during the hardest nights. I slowly began allowing myself to feel my emotions without judging myself so harshly for having them in the first place. I also decided, after much hesitation, to talk to a counselor at a small clinic near my apartment. I had never considered therapy before, believing I was strong enough to handle everything on my own. But after weeks of sleepless nights and constant overthinking, I realized that carrying this pain completely alone was not helping me heal any faster. My counselor helped me understand something important. Attachment built quickly, through constant conversation and emotional intensity, can feel incredibly real and powerful, even without a stable foundation beneath it. She explained that my feelings were valid, even if the situation itself had been unhealthy and confusing from the start. During our sessions, my counselor also helped me notice a pattern in how Ryan had treated me throughout our entire connection. She pointed out, gently, that he had consistently controlled the pace and direction of our relationship, deciding when to grow closer and when to pull away, while I had mostly reacted to his choices rather than making clear choices of my own. Recognizing this pattern did not erase the pain, but it helped me understand the situation more clearly, without blaming myself entirely for everything that had happened. Slowly, with time, effort, and support from people around me, I finally found the strength to block Ryan's number completely, deleting our old messages one evening while sitting quietly in my room. My hands shook slightly as I did it, but afterward, I felt an unexpected sense of relief settle over me, like finally closing a door that had been left open far too long. I still think about him sometimes, especially late at night when my mind grows quiet. I have heard, through mutual friends, that he continues pursuing his dream of becoming an actor, occasionally appearing in small television roles here and there. Part of me wonders if I will one day see his face appear unexpectedly on my screen while watching television, and I wonder how that moment might feel when it eventually happens. As for my engagement with Brian, I have made peace, slowly, with how everything unfolded. I no longer believe that staying in an unhappy situation, simply for the sake of stability, would have truly made me happy in the long run. I deserved genuine respect and value in a relationship, not just practical convenience. Recognizing that truth, even though it still stings sometimes, has helped me feel a little more confident about the decisions that led me to where I am today. These days, I am focusing heavily on my career and on rebuilding my own sense of self-worth. I have started taking an evening pottery class, something completely unrelated to my usual work, simply because it brings me a quiet sense of joy and creativity that I had forgotten I needed. Sitting at the pottery wheel, focusing only on shaping the clay in front of me, gives my busy mind a rare moment of stillness. There is something deeply satisfying about starting with a shapeless lump of clay and slowly, patiently, turning it into something whole and useful. I have also started spending more intentional time with close friends and family members, people who genuinely value and respect me for who I truly am. My classmates in the pottery studio have slowly become an unexpected source of comfort as well. Most evenings, after class, a small group of us stays behind to chat over coffee, talking about everything from our work stresses to our weekend plans. None of them know the full details of what I went through with Ryan, but simply being around people who enjoy my company, without any complicated emotional history attached, has helped me remember what easy, uncomplicated connection can feel like. I will not pretend that I have everything figured out now, or that my heart no longer aches occasionally when old memories resurface unexpectedly. Healing, I have learned, does not follow a straight, simple path. Some days feel lighter and easier, while other days still feel heavy and difficult, seemingly without any clear reason. But I am slowly learning to be patient and gentle with myself throughout this entire process. I no longer ask myself constantly whether Ryan was purely a villain in my story, or simply someone caught up in his own confusion and weaknesses, much like I was caught up in mine. I have come to accept that some questions may never have a completely clear answer, and that continuing to search endlessly for that answer will only keep me stuck in the past, unable to move forward into whatever comes next for me. What I do know clearly now is this: I am not broken beyond repair, despite how deeply exhausted and confused I once felt. I am someone who trusted sincerely, loved honestly, and is now learning, one small step at a time, how to rebuild trust in myself again. I am learning that my worth was never dependent on whether Ryan chose me or whether my engagement with Brian succeeded or failed. My worth simply exists within me, steady and unchanging, regardless of how any particular relationship in my life unfolds. Some mornings, I wake up feeling genuinely hopeful about my future again, imagining new possibilities, new connections, and new chapters waiting quietly ahead of me. Other mornings still feel a little harder, a little heavier, filled with quiet memories I have not yet fully released. But overall, I can honestly say that I am moving forward, slowly but surely, carrying valuable lessons from this painful chapter, rather than carrying only its pain. I still do not know exactly what my future holds, whether it involves marriage, a completely different career direction, or simply continued personal growth on my own terms. But for the first time in many months, I feel a small, steady sense of peace beginning to settle within me, one quiet day at a time. Sometimes, when I sit quietly in the evening with a cup of tea, I think back on the version of myself who first agreed to meet Brian, full of cautious hope for a stable future. I think about the version of myself who slowly fell into something confusing and painful with Ryan, believing, for a short while, that it might turn into something real. I do not look at either version of myself with anger anymore. Instead, I try to look at her with a quiet kind of understanding, the same understanding I would offer a close friend going through something difficult. I have also started being more careful and intentional about how quickly I allow new connections to grow in my life. I remind myself that genuine respect and clarity should be present from the very beginning of any relationship, not something I have to hope for or wait patiently to eventually receive. If someone cannot offer me honesty and consistency early on, I am learning to see that as valuable information rather than as a puzzle I need to solve or a problem I need to fix through more patience and effort. There are still evenings when a memory surfaces unexpectedly, a certain song playing on the radio, a phrase someone uses that Ryan once used too, and for a brief moment, that old ache returns. But it passes more quickly now than it used to. I have learned that healing does not mean forgetting completely. It simply means that the memories slowly lose their sharp edges, becoming softer and less painful with time. I do not know if I will ever fully understand exactly why everything unfolded the way it did. I may never know for certain whether Ryan truly cared for me in his own complicated way, or whether I was simply a temporary distraction during a stressful period of his own life. What I do know, with growing certainty each day, is that I deserve a relationship built on honesty, respect, and genuine clarity from the very start, not one built quietly around confusion, mixed signals, and hidden engagements. For now, I am choosing to focus on becoming the strongest, most grounded version of myself that I can be, one small, steady step at a time, trusting that whatever comes next in my life will arrive at exactly the right moment, when I am truly ready for it. If you liked this story, please like, comment, and share. More simple and emotional stories are coming soon.